As the blinding light from the summoning faded, I look down and I see a baby. For a moment, it looks human, with a bit of a deeper red hue, which is usually pink, not red like this. That is when I see the tail move underneath it. I reach down and pick her? Yes, her up. As I do, I take very special care to support the head. Where did I learn this? I think for a moment. But picking her up, her back is exposed, showing a set of wings along with the tail, both of which are very underdeveloped. I look at her face and I hear heavy footsteps of the knights coming towards me, weapons being pulled from their sheaths as they approach. I don't move, nor can I at that moment. All I can do is use the robe I'm wearing to wrap the baby up, and that is when the resonance kicks in. Power bursts through my body like a set of a dozen lightning bolts coming in from different directions. In that moment, I can feel my body change. It is as though the chains that have been holding me down have just been broken. Not broken, but shattered, allowing me full movement. The world becomes lighter, as though I've been carrying a 200-pound rucksack and I just took it off. My senses become more keen. My vision is adjusted as though I can see the aura of everyone and everything around me. I can feel the emotions of everyone in all directions. I can feel the changes to me as my muscles get slightly denser, more elastic. My bones become denser. I can feel them getting larger inside my body, yet something strange. It's though I am entering puberty, but not like I'm going through all of it at the same time, but at the same time. It's strange. The power actually takes me to my feet, and I hold the baby girl even closer to me as I am almost elevated off the surface. Then the surge of power just halts. I'm left standing there, wondering what the hell just happened. And of course, everyone's thinking the same. Looking around, I can see the knights all around me in every direction, weapons ready, and I know what this creature is. I also know what the law says. As one of the knights gets close to strike, I ask, "What in the devil's own playground are you doing?" I do this as I move to protect the child, pulling it away from this one who is actually pulling up their weapon. They hesitate as one yells from the back, "Demon!" I turn to one that yelled, once again maneuvering the child to protect it. I raise my voice and speak as clear as I can. "In any instance where that statement is correct, you have no position to hold where the termination of the child would be justified." They all look at each other, and then contemplating a response, I yell again, "There is no law stating that a creature such as this shall be confiscated, confined, imprisoned, mutilated, molested, nor terminated. Now back away, so that I may vacate the summoning circle." I could see that they were taking my words personal, especially the captain of the knights that still held a grudge against me for stopping his previous inappropriate actions. He stood straight, put his weapon away, and said, "We shall receive a decision on the fate of that creature when its existence is described to the Lord. A creature such as this should not be in the care of someone such as yourself." The mayor of the town, standing right there on the podium, yelled over at both of us, "And what, pray tell, would a man such as yourself desire from an infant female? I shall bring this matter before the Lord myself. She will be much more interested in this development, I believe." The captain, realizing that he was actually put into a bind once again, motioned to the knights, and the knights were obviously waved off by said captain. And the mayor walked over to me and motioned for me to walk off the elevated stage where the summoning circle was. On the way down the stairs, the crowd was surprisingly silent. Usually there's cheers, claps, or something. Yet everyone was in shock, as this was one of many surprises that had happened today. I could actually hear the cleric fumble her words as the next child was called, probably assuming that another grandiose creature would be summoned. As my parents reached me, I could hear the sound of another calf crying. I grinned, as this was another good summon, especially because I know who was right behind me. My parents were grateful that I received a summon at all, but they were concerned. How would they be able to afford another mouth to feed, especially when there was already a child on the way? Without skipping a beat, I told them, "First light tomorrow, I will register at the guild's hall, any guilds. I will care for this child as if they are my own child now." Before my words even had a chance to settle, a voice came out from the side saying, "One so young should not be burdening oneself with such labors." I turned to look, and I could see the summon dealers all around us. They were moving in fairly quick. The gross aura around each of them, making my skin crawl as they spoke. "A creature such as that could fetch a price upwards of 7 large gold coins." My parents were shocked at this amount of money. A single large gold coin could feed our family for 6 months easily. In fact, we would get rather fat on the amount that we could buy with that. Another dealer offered up to 8 large and 2 small gold coins. From there, the prices just went up. As we walked, they keep pitching more and more, yet I could tell they were not really talking to me. When they went above 11 large gold, even my mother hesitated for just a moment. That is when they focused solely on my parents, especially focusing on my mother, realizing that she was very pregnant. Eventually, I snapped. "You wretched representations of men are either intoxicated or simply beyond idiocy's belief. Only one in sheer desperation would even consider vending their own child. I am neither desperate nor idiotic enough to allow my child anywhere near filth such as yourself. Show your presence near my child once again, or attempt abduction, and you will find wrath beyond your imaginations. If you do not believe my words, then I recommend that you bear witness to your own surroundings." The cocky dealers paused for a second and looked around and realized that they had been surrounded by very angry neighbors. A couple of knights and fathers that seemed to take special interest in the conversation were there as well. Even the minotaur named Gunther, standing near 8 feet tall. All he had to do was look and snort, and the dealers booked away quick. In fact, they were run out of the area, almost out of town that night for their absolute debauchery. The rest of the summoning that day went off without a hitch. I held the girl in my arms, not even realizing that wrapping the girl up in the robe had kind of exposed me on one side. As the insane pageantry of the summoning ended, I began to struggle for a name on this one. Everyone started to ask me what the name would be. I was so confused. I even asked Lisa, as her unicorn seemed to sit there and stare at my new arrival. We both looked at her, and she opened her eyes, but ever so slightly. The red of her eyes actually came through, and a name came through to us both. But only a crimson name would do. The name would be Scarlet. The walk back to our residence was interesting, as everybody wanted to see the new summons from that day. As we walked, I saw Roxanne, and she came up to me with her salamander still clinging to her back. She walked with armed knights, as it's actually customary to return to your own residence, not just to fully brief the family on the fact that she will now be moving to an area where she can be trained, but also to allow the child to say goodbye. If this is not done, then the child has a high chance of simply running away. Roxanne was still showing the residents of her summon as she looked down, and steam actually came out of her head when she told me I was exposed on one side. Joking, I looked and saw this and said, "What is the issue? Are you not intrigued by the view?" In truth, I just had nothing to wrap her in, so this is what I used. In that moment, Roxanne actually got so warm I could feel it even though I was several feet away. I simply placed my hand on her shoulder and mentioned how grateful I am to have met her, and how I look forward to seeing her growth as an apprentice and eventually a knight of her own. I even turned towards Lisa and mentioned how she will also become a great sage in the future and how I truly, truly look forward to it. They each gave me a hug and very careful not to squish the child in my arms before they parted away on their own lives. Others would also walk up to congratulate me and say how I had lucked out and got such a strong summons, mostly remarking how the burst of power revealed the power of the summon itself and how the residents will allow me to easily receive a career, which is true, but also necessary. Upon stopping for lunch, my parents hesitated and then mentioned how they are already going to have a sibling soon. To that end, finances will be very strained. I knew this was coming, so I'd already made plans to head to the guilds the next day. Hell, I'd already screamed it out. I would scour every guild until I found something, anything that pays. Upon mentioning this, my folks were still concerned about the interviews. That is until I resolutely said, "Until then, she can share my ration. We don't have to have any more." Oh, what a fool I was. For that first day, Scarlett didn't cry one bit. I wanted to feed her, but I had forgotten that she is still an infant. Being so close to giving birth, my mother could actually supplement her for a little while at least. It just wasn't going to be enough, and we knew it. There was also another issue I had not accounted for. I had wrongfully assumed that the red meant that she was a fire-type demon, or with that much power, maybe a vampire or something. I was wrong. As she suckled at my mother's breast, my mother began to squirm. A little at first, of course, and then more and more and more where she sat, only pausing for a few moments as she switched sides. Eventually, she got to the point of no return. She screamed and shook, but not in pain. Her dress had clearly become moist, and yet the smell of ammonia was clearly absent, so obviously she didn't piss herself. Another flash of realization and memory arrived inside my head. Quickly, I reached for Scarlett, and I worried Mother would actually drop her the way she was acting. Yet this turned out to be a mistake. A simple grazing of my fingers as I reached for Scarlett, and then the touch of Father as he checked on Mother sent her into convulsions and screaming, but again, not of pain. Upon realization, Father said to me that I need to leave the room. Considering the look on Mother's face and where her hands were going at that moment, I did not want to be present anymore anyway. For the next hour, perhaps two, the noises that came from the main greeting room area, which I constantly kept calling a living room for some reason, echoed all the way to the neighbors. For a while, I worried that the neighbors would arrive to complain about the noise or send the authorities, but nothing, thankfully. After all the commotion ended, I waited and then went out to assure that they were all right, especially since they both suddenly went silent. I walked out as quiet as I could and looked in, and the sight of both of them passed out without a single stitch of clothing, glossy from sweat, still breathing heavy, and it was perfectly clear that if Mother was not pregnant before, well, she sure was now. I started to wonder if she tried to get the child inside pregnant as well. I looked at Scarlett, who had actually been asleep this entire time and realizing what she is. I never, ever thought I would have a succubus as a daughter or little sister or stepsister. Familiar? Okay, I needed to stop thinking about it. My head hurts. Starting early the next day, I left after breakfast and headed straight to the guilds. It's not very common to see a 5-year-old looking for work at the different guilds. It's not uncommon either, however. Everyone has their reasons for this, and it's usually financial. Yet it's not ever polite to ask. Unfortunately, your chances of work are wrapped around the summon itself. Due to the resonance, it allows you to do more in certain areas. Like everyone with heightened senses could find wild creatures or herbs very, very easily. Being strong physically from the summons meant that you could do a lot of labor, but it also meant constant work. With a summon like mine, I don't know. The day was long. Constant rejections from the crafting guilds, the labor guilds, even the dungeon crawler guilds are just telling me no. The moment they realized what type of summon I had, they either got nervous or just completely lost interest. I will give them credit though, at least most of them, because they would just tell me straight the reason why they wouldn't hire me at their guilds. However, one of the receptionists was quite rude to me, so I got a little payback on her. I made her feel bad by showing her Scarlet's face a little bit. And of course, she wanted to see the baby. Let's face it, what woman doesn't? But after only a few seconds of physical contact, and she gave Scarlet back. Reason being, she had to head to the back room. I chuckled at the absurdities that were being screamed in pleasure as I walked out the door. You could hear them through several walls, and many were simply looking at each other going, "Wah?" As the sun was going down, I was getting desperate to find any work, and there was only one more guild to try, but I was beyond hesitant to walk in. But, as they say, beggars can't be choosers. Walking into the pleasure sector of town made me uneasy, especially being just a 5-year-old kid. Surprisingly, Scarlet just stopped squirming for the first time in hours at that point. After finding the main office, I walked in and asked if I could register. The one who was behind the counter was confused and looked around, and then she looked over the counter at me, probably thought that she would see a halfling or a goblin stand there. She looked in curiosity at first, but then turned to displeasure up to disdain to see a young boy standing there. Without even asking my name, she simply called me boy, said there's nothing for a child here. She began to berate me very heavily, but only paused when her own familiar, a beautiful white bird that seemed to be a cross between an eagle and a peacock, just flew over and seemed to stare at Scarlet. Another one of her summons, a dire hound, basically a dire wolf, walked over, sniffed both of us, and then sat down, wagging its tail and seemed to be waiting for a scratch behind the ears. Seeing this, the receptionist absolutely changed her demeanor. The look of disdain actually turned more to curiosity as she said, "It appears my familiars recognize something in you that I cannot. Perhaps we can make an exception for one such as you. Follow me." She led me to another area, then up several flights of stairs. As we passed a line of doors on either side of the hall, I could hear their business beginning for the night. We walked to the end of the hallway, as there was a sayer, which was a half-man, half-goat, which didn't stand much taller than me, standing guard with a very, very large slime, at least the size of me, on the other side of the door. Neither one of these summons are very powerful on their own, yet if they were to fight together, they could be an issue, especially for somebody my age. Inside, a very well-endowed woman waited. The receptionist quickly explained the situation into her ear, where I could only catch pieces of what she was saying. After that, they started whispering to each other's ears back and forth, staying so low that I just couldn't hear anything. Eventually, the heavy-chested woman turned to me and said, "So if you're here, then I feel secure in my assumption that all the other guilds have rejected you?" I responded, "Yes, miss." She snapped, "It is mistress, a title you must become familiar with instantaneously if you desire employment, though for this moment we shall forgo formalities. As explained, you are seeking employment, yes? Perhaps you have a special skill or ability gifted to you by your familiar?" She motioned to Scarlet at that point. I responded, "I do not look at her as a familiar mistress." She leaned back in her chair before saying, "If your intention is to sell her, then..." At that moment she halted, because the sudden look of anger that shot into her eyes from me closed her mouth really quick. Then realization hit her before speaking again. "I see. Then I will remain under the standard assumption that you are here for financial reasons to support your... What, may I ask, she is?" With that, I maneuver Scarlet so that her face is actually turned towards the mistress. I say, "I've just recently discovered that she is a succubus, though I have been offered very generous amounts to relinquish her ownership. I cannot. In my perception, she is my daughter, my kin. As it stands, my duty as a father is clear, and how am I supposed to accomplish these duties remains to be seen." The look of contemplation in the mistress's face is clear before she speaks again, saying, "Perhaps you have received some sort of abilities from your summoning ritual that will aid you in your employment here?" I realized the probing question, but I decided I had to be honest. I told her nothing has been revealed as of yet. Nothing beyond the eruption of power from said ritual. I could see another dose of contemplation in her eyes, although it seemed like she was remembering something. "Ah, yes, the ritual," she said. "Such long-winded charades. Perhaps it is to hide the cleric's own inadequacies." I chuckled at that. She continued, saying, "I notice we are of the same mind on that subject." At that point, she stands up, showing her very full figure in that dress. This is the moment I realized that the roses in her hair actually are to conceal her auburn hair. She didn't actually have red hair. She continued, "We must check to see if you are strong enough to be employed. It happens that some clientele can become aggressive. They will raise no issue in striking one such as yourself and forcing you to perform favors." I had no illusions about what she was talking about, as many of the clientele come in here very intoxicated, and they will try to do something stupid. Though I didn't have time to think about that too much, as it's clear to see that her third summons was now moving. I realized that that wasn't a decoration on the back of her chair. It was actually just one really big-ass snake. The mistress told me she had to test me, and the test was simple. I placed Scarlet down, and the snake will attack me. If I can endure this attack for 5 minutes, I pass. If I break free, I pass. Yet before we start, I'm required to actually leave all my gear, everything from my belt, on the table right next to Scarlet. This is actually more to protect the snake than protect me, and also to make sure I don't decide to actually draw my knife and damage her familiar. I see the snake coiling up for the attack, waving its tail as though to try and distract me. Yet something in my mind, something from the past, tells me don't watch the tail, watch the head. As it strikes, a quick uppercut sends it back flying. It shakes off the attack, coils again, and this time, instead of striking, I dodge. But dang, this thing sure is fast. Eventually, it grabs onto my legs with its teeth and begins to coil around my body really fast. The moment this happens, the Sayer and the slime actually come into the room, and all I can think is, great, it's a frickin' ambush. Without hesitation, the Sayer begins to charge as the snake tries to bind my legs together. I fight like hell to keep my legs apart to limit the snake from doing what it wants to do, but my movement is surely limited. I can't run, I can't jump, I can't do anything, and that's when a headbutt is given. A very unpleasant headbutt from the Sayer, but I can still stay on my feet. That is when the slime, about the size of 2 bed pillows, attaches itself to my head. I think to myself, sneaky fucker, it's trying to drown me. Yet, all I need to do is grab its core, and then I can simply pull it off, as the entire slime will go with the core. Driving both hands into the slime leaves me completely open. The Sayer then kicks me in the guts. This small body damn near buckles from the strike, even as small as a Sayer actually is. That is when I find the core with my left hand and pull very hard. At that point, the rest of the slime goes with it, but I don't let go. Grabbing the snake by the neck with my right hand, I immediately clap them together. With the head of the snake now covered in slime, it panics and begins to unwind. What happens next is a hard kick to the side of my head, and my vision begins to go blurry. The Sayer then moved towards Scarlet, and seeing him smile at her enrages me to no end. It is then that I hear Scarlet cry, a cry of fear. That is when I completely lost it. My injury seemed to go away, my strength went through the roof, and my desire to kill reached a level that I had almost forgotten. Before I knew it, I was on my feet, and every part of me wanted to get some killing done. As I stepped forward, damn near ripping the snake in half, I grabbed the Sayer by the neck and reached up to grab his horn, pulling him down hard. The Sayer is taller than me, so I grabbed one of his horns and drove my knee into his face. As he fell, the mistress stepped forward, yelling, "Enough!" I stood between them and Scarlet as my blood still boiled. After checking on the Sayer and sending it away to see the healer, she turned towards me. "I apologize for such an uncomfortable experience. However, your new abilities must be known. And I have to say I'm quite pleased to say that you've passed. Since you are far too young to entertain, like most of the ladies here, would you be willing to accept a janitorial position?" Taking a breath to calm down and, of course, catch my breath, I say, "I cannot begin this night, as I am late already to return home. I would also ask if I may leave my daughter in your protection or care of your familiars while I work." She seemed to grin just a little bit before saying they already requested it. For reasons unknown to me, they responded to your familiar, as I am sure you have noticed upon arrival. Your familiar presents a calming effect. Yet I must inquire as to why you would not ask your family to care for said child. I had to take a deep breath before explaining what had happened before, and the mistress actually asked me to follow her. I picked up Scarlet, and we walked down that hallway of doors. As we reached one, which didn't look any different from the others, she reached up, opened it, and called forward a woman. She looked really tall to me, but then again, I'm only 5. From this angle, I can't tell if she's a half ogre or a full ogre, with those small tusks and a absolute mean look on her face. The mistress and her spoke about her showing me the ropes the next day. She introduced me to this lady, and we shook hands. Before shaking hands, she had a look of contention at one so young that would handle duties in such a place as this, even if it's just items like laundry and maintenance. Yet after shaking hands, her demeanor began to soften. Within a minute, she began to move as though she had to relieve herself really bad. Then she excused herself, closed the door, and I could hear her run to the other side of the room and another door slam open. I was confused and said, "She must be in dire need to urinate." The mistress actually chuckled and said, "I'll explain at another time when you're older. If I recall, you must explain to your family. Are you able and willing to work at night?" I simply respond, "Yes, mistress." "Excellent," she says. "When it's just the two of us, you may call me Rose, by the way. Now, I will need you here before supper, as you'll be aiding the kitchen staff. Our schedule is that as we are open 5 to 7 nights a week. As in regards to your payment, is 2 large silver a week sufficient?" "Quite sufficient, Mistress Rose," I said, realizing that this was a very, very good payment for a starting pay. She replied, "Excellent. Now, off with you." I thanked her again, and I ran out, making sure that I stopped and greeted the receptionist. She smiled this time, and I gave her hound a quick pat on the way by. Running out, I actually almost ran into a few men entering the establishment for entertainment. I pardoned myself on the way by, even though the men said something I couldn't understand what it was. I simply took off. I ran home, where Mother was very upset that I was late coming back. The sun had already gone down, and my supper was cold, but Father was grateful that I had actually found employment. Yet neither of them were happy at all about where this employment would be. That is until I told them how much I was going to make. Father was grateful, but a bit upset, as I would actually earn more than him now. He was visually upset, even after I told him that at least half of my earnings are going to go towards the family, my parents and the new one coming in. He was upset emotionally, but I could see the relief in his eyes, the logical part of his brain. Especially with another on the way, they're going to need all the help they can get. That night, I had a lot of trouble sleeping at first, though it was not anticipation of my first day at work or anything like that. It was the fact that I realized something. I realized that Scarlet had not been changed all day, not since breakfast. She must really, really need to be changed, I thought, and even though she didn't cry, I knew I needed to maintain her. Though when I went to change her, obviously I had to unwrap her out of the swaddle I had her in, and she spread her wings and tail and stretched in a way as though she was just waking up. Then I looked, and she had not made a mess, as in, at all. I know she ate or drank, but for some reason she had not soiled her diaper at all. She looked healthy, but I couldn't make heads or tails of it. I laid her in bed, and with only a light sheet over her to keep the cool night air off, this allows her appendages to move freely at night, and as she slept peacefully on the bed, usually rolling over to her stomach so that her wings could spread out a little bit, my mind just raced. Did I do something wrong? Is she okay? Is there something else I need to do for this particular summons? Did I screw up already? And of course, the standard, what the fuck? All these questions ran through my mind, keeping sleep at bay. Eventually, I laid down on the bed. Little did I realize what truly awaited me. Eventually, sleep did come, and it was a peaceful rest, at least. Yet the very first thing I saw when I opened my eyes confused me, comforted me, and scared me all at the same time. Hello everybody, this is Syntax. Thank you for joining me today on part 2 of this ongoing series, which is going to be coming out once a week. Now before I go, I need to say that today's winner is Julius Boone, with Alan Williams coming in very close second. I also need to send out some great big thank yous to the supporters of this channel, and those will be Sir, Prozac and Pancakes, SS Demon, Brian Kemp, MTF Guard, Erica Gem, Joseph Blosh, Guardian Sage, and Julius Boone. Thank you all so much for supporting the channel. Everybody else, I'll see you on the next one. This is Syntext.
Ejecting!